cloud. I'm now a cloud guy when the time comes. When I've got a run that I
Mhm.
believe in and I need
Cool.
to
So I
work.
did all that math, and this is the big sheet that I created to figure out whether I should buy a machine or have it on the cloud. As you can see, it has so many tabs here from different the
You're
self.
you're you're not showing anything, Dave.
Am I not? I thought I
No,
Your
was.
video mute.
your video's off, man.
No, not my video. I'm trying to do the share screen.
Probably not enabled yet.
On my iPad. It doesn't give any. Okay, so
There you go.
Now we are.
Yeah.
okay,
Well, we're getting closer anyhow.
okay. So I thought this whole time it was showing up, and
No, no, no.
so I had this big sheet. This is like my self option, like if I have to build a desktop with a small desktop or a big desktop. And you asked me what is the CPU. This is the CPU that I have it, 5975. Uh,
Mhm.
and back then, the fifth generation Zen 5 CPU or whatever came out, which was this one.
Mhm.
And this was the cost. And as you can see, there was a big cost difference between one and two CPUs, between this CPU and the workstation CPU. And then costs add up for the workstations. I had to basically do the research on if I want NVMEs and how many can it install, how many fans do I need to put in, what kind of case I need to put, what kind of power do I need to do if I want to expand it from two to more later, what kind of support that I want to buy.
Did you
And there were
compare it? Did you compare it to the cloud?
Yes.
You
So
did.
then, of course, the cloud cost is there, which is basically assuming certain number of hours of use, daily cost, depending on, okay, this is saying number of hours 24, but that is not the right cost. Uh, as
Yeah.
uh, Julius was saying, but I have to also account for the power cost, right? And then I also have a Tesla and I'm on different plans because of that. So like these are different plans. And when you put all of those, how much will it cost over time? And then, you know,
Oh man.
so then this is the AC in summer and these like EV
Wow.
charging, support costs and everything included. And then it came down to cost difference. And again, because I did it 2.5 years ago, I have to just go
Mhm.
back and reread some of it. So the math that I came to was that if I do cloud use with high or versus uh, assuming high use, right? Um,
Mhm.
it paid off. And again, I'm trying to interpret my own. Like if I do 50% cloud, sorry, I'm myself having some trouble interpreting this right now. But essentially, I had that, and I was convinced that uh, the biggest thing with the cloud is not so much as the price, as Julius also found out. The biggest thing is that if I want to have my system reserved, then I have to have my configuration reserved the whole time. And then storage is another cost. Ingress and egress is another cost.
Mm.
Uh, so those peripheral costs add up. And then if I have to redo my system, rebuild my system, bring all the data in. Sometimes there is cost to bring data from persistent storage to your VM if you
Yeah,
don't
that's
want
true.
to keep your VM reserved the whole time. Even if it is not on, there's a price to keep it reserved also. So that administrative cost was too much because then instead of focusing on my real problems that I want to solve, I'd be spending half the time trying to just get the machines up and down and figuring out how I don't end up paying a lot to them for those things. Especially sometimes when you do these computation data analysis, sometimes it can be like 300, 200 gigabytes of data. Uh, I mean, then it was a no-brainer at that time.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Cool.
okay, it's one-time investment. Uh, yeah. Anyhow, I mean, this is something that I can, I'd probably mention it to someone. I don't know who that,
Yeah.
I can even try to
It,
present it.
it seems like
Yeah.
it might be good to have a session where various people are asking that question. How to build a machine as well as what's the cloud comparison, what
Yeah,
Yeah.
are
I,
the
Yeah,
cloud
yeah,
sources?
that'd be
yeah,
great. I bet,
yeah.
and if you advertise it, I bet a lot of people will come to that. I mean, that's a really fundamental thing, and this is the most complete analysis I've ever seen.
Except that-
It's Dave, you know, so he's gonna, if it can be overdone, if it can be done, it can be overdone, right?
I think I was
Fantastic.
I don't know if it was our Slack or if it was a different spot, but somebody literally asked that question like 2 days ago. I feel like. So yeah, I feel like that would be.
Well, I
valuable.
posted a question a couple of weeks ago about, you know, which way to go. But
Yeah, it wasn't that one. I remember yours, but then I
Yeah.
saw one a couple of days ago too. So I think people are actually wondering.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. You know,
You also need to call them for your video game needs.
Yeah,
You know,
Well, that-
it's so I'm just one last thing, and I will shut up after that. So the only thing, so I didn't want to spend time to configure after deciding all the components and the case and everything, and the fans and everything. I just gave it to Central Computer or something like that. There's a small company in Bay Area. They have like
Yeah,
7 or 8 branches.
well, they've been
I
around
also-
forever.
Yeah, and back then I also was in touch with the CEO and the sales team of Lambda Server, Lambda Labs, and that was going to be 2,000-3,000 costly. And they were giving me a liquid cooled MSI 4090. The only challenge of building by myself and handing it over to Computer Central was to locate 4090 built by NVIDIA, because I didn't want to use the third party, because I did a lot of research on the fans and the heat vortex that conform and the amount of space that it takes to put in. This was the most compact and most efficient build that they had, was from the NVIDIA Foundation. They call it something like that. I forget the term now. Anyhow,
Yeah,
so
it's-
so I gave it to them and I said, go install Linux. They charged me like some $300 to do everything and 3 years of warranty and everything on the work. And I said, just take that money and build it for me. A week later, I called them, is it ready? And they said, everything is ready. We are not able to get the sound working on it. I said, I don't care about video gaming and sound and anything. Just get me my machine on. I said, sorry, I just wanted to say that long story too.
That would be a deal breaker for some of us.
that's
Yeah. Well, so everybody's got different priorities, right? Okay. But anyway, do we have anybody new here tonight? I guess hey, is it Imitish?
Yes, I have been trying to join a meetup for a while. I
Yeah?
have first class taekwondo. I just came back from there, and I had to but I thought today is the day. You could
Oh, okay.
so I'm here.
Cool.
good.
Well, glad to have you, man. This is probably a good one to get started on and everything like that. So,
Also, Amitesh, I'm going to post a link. We do kind of coordinating on the Slack channel, so I'll post a link if you're interested in joining that. Just click on
Oh, yeah,
that.
that would be awesome. I'll do it.
yeah, then you can see me ask my stupid questions about building a system that kind of got us sidetracked on this. Where Winnie said, oh, no, she asked me about a system. I think we went back and forth a few times too, right, on system configurations and stuff. So
Awesome.
there's always something.
It doesn't sound like a sidetrack if a bunch of people are interested.
All right. Thank you, Roger, for saying. Well, so tonight's sidetrack. No, so tonight I'm gonna go over. Let me get my thing up before and I guess I should start presenting my screen, right? So, oh wait a minute, what's going on here? Post to 10 days Zoom. Bear with me. My Mac is acting flaky again.
You're on Mac now?
For this machine, yeah.
Ted, that
That
looks
is
like
good.
an interesting paper.
Yeah, it is, but
You're doing State of GPT today, right?
yes.
Yeah, no,
yes.
Ted posted a paper though that looked kind of interesting, at least the
Oh,
title.
the paper is what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
God darn it, guys. I don't,
Certainly
you
one
don't
that Julius would
recognize.
like.
what's that?
It's got a unit hypersphere in there. Well, actually, it doesn't say unit, but hypersphere. Hypersphere.
Ted, could you record too, if you wouldn't mind?
You want me to record today? Okay.
Yeah, or Roger, I don't care, somebody other than me, because I'll be yammering away. All right, let me share my screen. Oh, and I got to remember to click share sound and optimize video clip, right?
Are you doing any video or are you just doing slides?
Just doing slides.
Then you don't actually need to.
Oh, okay. The
Ted,
share sound, probably not either, because it's not really a sound. Maybe it'll give us a little more bandwidth if I don't share any of that stuff. What do you guys think? Anyway.
Hey, Ted, if you give me permission, I'll record as well.
Okay.
Let me get set up then. And am I
Recording in progress.
Ah, there you go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. For those that haven't ever gone through this, we did this last year, at least part of it last year. But Air Street Capital is a, cap firm based, I believe, out of London or Boston. I don't remember which one right now. But anyway, they put together every year for the last, 6 or 7 years, this State of AI report. And it's been pretty interesting. We've gone through it, like we said last year, I think that's where we found it. And it's pretty useful. And so we thought we'd just go through it again. As you can look, for those that know Google Slides, there's a lot of slides, and we're not going through all of them. All these ones with the circle and the X through them, we're not doing those. Because there's like 250 slides or something like that. And I didn't think anybody wanted to do that. We're trying to get this done in maybe 3 sessions. We'll see how we end up, this being the first one. Okay, so I'm just going to start here. And it's typical rules for the new people. If you have a question, just say something. I'm sure somebody else has the exact same question, and we'll just stop and discuss it there. We're not super critical about, how long it takes us to get through. It's better that people understand, okay?
Hey, Jerry, Mike
All right.
mentioned also, this seemed to be, last time we did this, it was a really good source for future presentations. So people want
Yes.
to think about it from that perspective and, raise their hand if interested in leading a discussion or having a discussion on the topics.
Yeah, thanks, Roger, for bringing that up.
Yeah, and if I could chime in, I think we tended to have more sort of open discussion with this versus like a technical paper. So it doesn't have to just be like a technical question. I think it's fine for us to, chat about whether we agree, disagree, whatever,
Yeah,
more stuff like that.
Yeah, in fact, that's kind of the purpose of the thing, because these guys are making their assessment of it, but their assessment may not match ours. And if that's, not the case, we should really bring that up. Okay, so about the report, they've been doing this since 2018. So to be doing an AI report since 2018 shows a real commitment to the AI technology, because, there wasn't tons of stuff out there. There was some machine learning stuff, but in terms of true AI, there was a lot less than there is today. And obviously, when, there was a lot less interest than there was today. It was all just us geeky folk, not everybody, and your grandmother wasn't going up to you and asking you about, well, which AI system should I use to generate my Christmas card or something like that, or whatever they're doing now. So, but, it's become to the forefront. But anyway, I believe their structure has been very much the same. There are 5 sections. There's a section on research where they go through technology breakthrough and capabilities. There's a section on industry where they talk about the commercial applications for AI and its business impact. And then politics, which is kind of the regulation of AI and its economic impacts. We won't spend much time. We won't get there tonight, but when I get there, we will not spend much time in there. Safety. We will spend more time than we have in previous years, or last year, which was kind of like none on safety, simply because it's become a forefront sort of thing. I don't think any of us can, watch the news one day where we can't have somebody yelling at us about this existential threat of AI taking all our jobs, replacing us, doing something, horrible and nasty, or going to drive our cars off into the road if you have like a Tesla or things like that. And one of the real fun things that I find is they have a section on predictions. And for this year, obviously, they'll be talking about what happened in 2000, what they think will happen in the rest of 2024 and in 2025. And they always have a performance review, which we'll get to tonight, for their previous predictions on, what they said was going to happen and how well they did. Okay? All right. The two authors are Nathan Benny-ish, I guess is how you pronounce it. And he's the general partner at the company, Air Street Capital. And this is their slide deck. I should get that out there right away. I've marked up a few things, but it really is their slide deck. So we really appreciate them making it available and for all of us to, to discuss about what's going on in AI. Alex Chalmers is also at Air Street Capital and does research and also, writes a lot about AI. These guys are both very smart. Alex is a graduate of Oxford, and I think Nate, he's a PhD from Cambridge. So these guys do know what they're talking about when they talk about various technical things. All right, let's move on. So leading off right away, let's review their predictions from 2023 and see what they got right and what they got wrong. Okay, starting with their number one prediction, a Hollywood-grade production will make use of generative AI for visual effects. Yes, but they say it's largely bad, which I would agree, but Gen AI has been seen in Netflix and HBO productions, and I guess we'll see a lot more of it. Anybody have any comments on that? Anybody have their favorite Gen AI thing they saw this year in any sort of media?
Or name one for me.
Hmm?
Do we have an example of one?
Well, they've done it, any sort of sci-fi movie these days has got some stuff in it, I think.
It wasn't on like in a big thing or anything, but there's a lot of like fun shorts on YouTube and stuff, I would say. My top two are something fairly recent called The Transmutation of Sam Altman, which you should look up on YouTube if you haven't seen that before. And then I think I guess there's like a bunch of people doing it, but you voice clone like Trump and Biden and other like just Elon, Joe Rogan, and you have them all like playing video games or something, and like in kind of a shitting on each other in voice calls like you would as just gamers or whatever. So yeah, well, those would be my top two, I think.
But have we seen anything out of Hollywood?
The only thing I can think of is there is a game, I want to say it's the Amazon Studios one, where they could have hired voice actors but chose not to and used 11 Labs instead. And then there was another game that could have chosen to use voice actors and did. Okay.
Eddie, you have your hand up there?
Yeah, so I guess one example that came to mind about this, though I don't know if I would necessarily consider it visual effects, is there was a film called Late Night with the Devil that I think released on Hulu, and I think people were quick to point out that it made use of generative AI for multiple like transition designs that were meant to look like they were from the 1970s. And they're like these transition slides. So it's not like a very huge load in terms of visual effects generation, but I think it was enough to stir up some controversy because it was like a pretty notable production, and it was like ranked as like one of the better horror films of the year, and so it got a lot of attention. So I think that's the other reason it was drawing more controversy. But the thing is, they only used it for like maybe 3 or 4 transition slides, but it's also featured prominently in the design scheme of, like, as the film takes place like as a 1970s TV show, and the design is featured prominently in like the background and all that stuff too.
Interesting. I've noticed on YouTube, there's somebody's got a channel, I guess, where they use Gen AI to like redo, Battlestar Galactica trailer or something like that. And, you know, it's everything is Gen AI because, you know, it's not any of the original actors, plus they, you know, are, the way they move and everything looks very, very generative AI. You know, it doesn't have multiple people on the screen at the same time, things like that. But, yeah, I think we'll see more of that, though, this year. It's going to get to a point, and then probably the, you know, the Actors Guild and things like that, it's going to say, well, what about royalties and, you know, all this and that and things like that. So, all right, let's go to their number 2 2003 production, which is Generative AI is investigated for misuse during the 2024 election circuit. Must be British, election season, or whatever they call it, circuit. They said not yet, but there still is time. However, my thought is we've seen it. I mean, we've seen political NFTs. You can get pictures of certain candidates and things like that looking like football stars and things like that for, you know, your $1,000 contribution or whatever. And then there was the fake endorsement from Taylor Swift that was out there that was completely generated and things like that. So I think it's out there. Maybe they did this early in the cycle and all the good stuff or bad stuff, however you praise it, had not come out yet. So, but we'll see. Dave? Dave?
Yeah, so Grok, so many of these, like DALL-E and others, they do not, see, for public figures like Tom Cruise and Trump and Kamala Harris and all, they have enough number of images to be able to generate caricatures or something like what you've seen or you described as part of the political effect. But DALL-E and Imagine and all, they put a lot of safety guards. They don't let you generate those. The only one that would let you generate and play around with that is Grok from X.ai. So you can give it, generate me a caricature, a man resembles Trump, female resembles Kamala Harris, assume it's a presidential debate, and presidential debate stage, and she's offering the bait, and Trump is taking the bait, and then draw me a caricature, and it will do it. And you can post it.
Yeah, well, we are reaching that point, right, where you can't really believe your eyes much anymore.
No, but that's a caricature, so it's an
okay.
not, you know, it's not a true image.
Not a true image. Oh.
I'm sure if no, what I mean to say is not a, like it's a caricature.
Not like a
characters.
Photographic image or anything like that, yeah.
Right. But I'm sure you can do that too. It's just that I didn't try any of that.
Well, come on, Dave. Let's be.
I tried that. I had an inspiration. I saw, you know, Trump and Kamala going back and forth, and I just had this idea for a cartoon, you know, a political cartoon, and so I asked all the chatbots, make me a caricature of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, where she's got a giant bat with the word truth on it, and she's about to hit him out of the park, and nobody would do it but Grok, and so thank you, Grok. You know, that's one good thing. So it came out great. You know, I posted it on Facebook, and it got, you know, shared. And,
Okay, so that is Grok, right?
yeah. So
I'm writing a
free
note.
speech.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let me move on, or we're going to be here all night here. Then the third one, they have self-improving AI's Crush. State of the art in complex environments, AAA gaming tools use. They said they haven't seen anything. I don't know of anything in that space. I don't spend time in that. One of my daughters works in it, but you know, the gaming space, she works for one of the design studios, but I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, and she will never tell me because she's very good about keeping secrets.
Isn't there a AlphaFold? There's a follow-on to AlphaFold where they're doing protein interactions and designing for what do you call them, binding spots, whatever they call it. I kind of feel like, and I think that was through self-improvement, because the whole alpha family that is self-improving, right?
Yes.
Alpha Zero, Alpha Fold, blah blah. It's all I can think kind of same approach. So
It's
I'm not sure about AlphaFold 3, but AlphaFold 1 and 2, they just took advantage of the name recognition from Alpha Zero.
oh really?
AlphaFold 1 and 2 were completely handcrafted. There was no RL, no self-improvement.
Oh,
I mean, obviously there's training, but there's nothing,
I did.
and there was nothing agentic, which is I think what they're really going for here in this third prediction.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if an RL agent necessarily counts because all of those are better than at least humans in playing video games at least. But it like the agent that's coming to mind is the Voyager paper. Does anybody remember that? Where they had its
Yeah.
yeah they had it
Caltech.
they had it executing Python code to do stuff in Minecraft. And actually today on Twitter, I saw the new Claude Sonnet built something like coherent and cool looking in Minecraft, which none of the models have been able to do yet so far. So that might have been broken today. So we'll see.
Well, you know how it is. The cycles on any of these, nothing, no barrier in it. Stops
Yeah, it
for
lasts
very
about a
long.
week, and then you know.
Yeah, you think up the thing, and then okay, we can do that. Yeah.
Hey, Jeremy,
Uh,
can you click the slideshow on it so it's a little bigger on the top right?
Top right. This
Yeah,
not
or
this.
just below that. Just below that. On the yeah, right below that.
I see. You want to go to slideshow view. Sorry, I wasn't following here. Okay. So let's see. Let's go with the fourth one then. Tech IPO. Well, Unthon. We'll see at least one major AI focused company. I guess one major listing. So something on the NASDAQ or something like that. They said they haven't seen anything like that. Everything's staying private right now. However, some company named Cerberus, the multi-headed dog, I guess, has filed.
Cerebras.
Cerebus?
Cerebras.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, I don't follow the market at that level. These guys, being an analytical firm, obviously do. GenAI Scaling sets up a group spend of $1 billion to train a single large-scale model. Well, and they say they haven't got there quite yet, so let's give it another year. I don't think any of the big companies is going to tell you how much they spent. They don't really want to know, and a Microsoft or a Google, something like that. Everybody I know over at Google, compute cycles and things like that are just sort of like air out in the ether. It's not ever accounted for internally. They don't think about it. I remember talking to some guys that were in one of the Angular group, I believe it was. And they said, oh yeah, we were doing a release and, we spun it up and then a bigger system became free. So mid-release, we spun up another copy of it on the bigger system and went with whatever one went, finished in 20 hours instead of 24 hours and just kind of abandoned the other one. So, yeah. Their economies of scales are not what UI and everybody talking about a computer and paying for it with their own money is. Okay, let's see. US
Can
FTC.
I make a quick comment?
Oh, go ahead, Ted. Sure.
I'll keep it short, but I think that companies are looking at ways they can get better without just going bigger, right? So we've seen, mixture of experts and other things. So I do think there is a little bit of rationality in not just trying to blow a whole bunch of compute.
Yeah. But I think right now the focus is on getting better but they are, in fact, we'll get to slides, not today, eventually. We'll get to the slides where they talk about kind of what people are looking at in trying to downscale AI from, especially, obviously in inference, from these big systems down to something, on your phone. Look at what Apple's doing, that sort of stuff, that thing. Anyway, I won't want to get too far. Let's see. Let's see, I guess they are investigating these sort of things, so that prediction for them came true. So we'll see what happens. Limited progress on global AI governance beyond voluntary commitments. From Bletchley and Seoul, summits remain voluntary and high. It still sounds like they're still voluntary. So, whatever. I hope
missed
they.
one, Rao.
Did I? No, I did the OpenAI one, didn't I? They said both regulators are looking into that. And which one, Dave? Which one
Then,
were you?
then I missed attending to it properly, George.
Okay. That's okay. You just had a little drop out there under a GPU or something like that for a minute. Financial institutions launched GPU debt fund to replace VC equity dollars for compute funding. No, but there are some rumors to that effect. But they haven't seen anybody go down that route. And remember, this is the 23 predictions, so we'll see what we do in 24, though. An AI-generated song breaks the top 100 or Spotify's top hits for the year. I guess it did happen. I don't know. I don't know the song "Hard on My Sleeve." But they also seen an AI-generated song reach number 27 in Germany, and spent several days in the top 50, which is kind of scary if you're a recording artist.
Yeah, it's actually, for context, that was a Drake song that eventually got like basically scrubbed off the internet, and there was like probably a good couple months where everybody started doing that. But yeah, I think it started charting before. After like random person on the internet decided like, hey, I'm just gonna voice clone Drake and use Drake instead of me, and managed to get on the billboards, and then UMG got very upset about that. So,
with I guess that is their job, right? To be the regulator, make sure the royalties go the right place and everything like that. So,
well, the royalties question is really interesting, I think, in this with just in that space in general, because it's like they're making. It was a new song. It just happened to use like the voice of a different person. Other than the voice, it was completely original. So.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, that is because there are people. There have been people that have imitated other people's voices and characters since forever, right? Was it Frank Gorshin that used to do a lot of those?
Yeah, and honestly, it sort of spawned, I don't know if you would call it a subgenre necessarily, but like there was a while where like on SoundCloud you could just search like AI Drake and there would be like a ton of like effectively unreleased Drake songs, right? Like if you were in the mood to listen to that, then you could find it. So yeah, it's wild.
Are these, when I see AI generated song, I'm imagining the music and the lyrics and everything have been generated by AI, which is different than, did I hear you say that it's mapping the voice to an existing artist?
Well, so yeah, there's any number of different ways to do it. I have a friend who's working on training Music Gen to do continuation. So you feed it like 30 seconds of yours, and it'll try to just continue making the same or making noises that it is conditioned to make based on your input. So it's kind of like a little jamming buddy. And then you can use like Suno, where it will generate like all the lyrics in the full song just off a single prompt. Then there's like 11 Labs like real-time voice cloning, where you just you can change your voice into anything, and then you can just go like do a normal music production thing. So there's any number of ways you could accomplish a goal like that essentially, which makes the copyright thing even stranger effectively, because it's like, what is AI music even? Like effectively all music that's been produced modernly is like AI somewhere. Like there's a matrix being multiplied, I can guarantee you that. So
so Julius, this is kind of your area of expertise. What's your assessment of
Well, there are a lot of people around me who are very concerned about this, and I've sat through quite a few talks about it. And my take has always been that current copyright law says you can do anything you want. If you just are imitating something based on having heard it, that's okay. Unless it unless you sell it and it sounds too much like the original, and the people on the 5 o'clock bus say, "Oh yeah, that sounds like the same song to me," and this has been well established in music copyright law for a long time. So you just have to stay away from anything that exists, and AI can really help you do that, right? Because especially if it's got access to all the music that's ever happened, it can keep a Euclidean distance greater than some threshold from any
Well,
existing music.
Aren't there time requirements too, in terms of copyright? Somebody can like sample music for X number of seconds or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, there's the fair use threshold, but as far as I know, that's gotten really hazy. I can't get anyone to tell me. Every now and then, there is a copyright office that I'm supposed to talk to at Stanford about that kind of thing, and I have tried, and you can't get really clear specs. So I think what happened is that I don't know the case law, but I bet there's inconsistent case law, so that sometimes you can get 10 seconds, okay, but the people I talk to aren't saying that anymore. So I don't really know if there is a cut and dried fair use in that respect.
There really is not, essentially.
Yeah.
The one precedent that I am aware of is there was someone who used a children's book, who generated all of the art for a children's book, then attempted to copyright the children's book, and the ruling was that they could copyright all of the written work, but they couldn't copyright any of the fully AI generated images.
That seems strange. I mean, they had to prompt it to do the right thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's really strange. I don't think our legal system is basically set up to have this. I think a lot of our systems aren't set up to have these things. So, yeah.
Well, I think
That's the bottom line.
But Julius, you're kind of bringing another angle in, which would be that AI can kind of be the copyright police as well.
Yeah, I think we should use it to manage all this, right? So you basically set up some system whereby, you do anything you want, and then whatever you put out, they just calculate a projection onto everything in the universe, and anyone who is a copyright holder to that stuff, and it can be quantized on a variety of levels, because especially when you only have a certain number of, big copyright holders, the big music copyright owners, fairly consolidated. So you can just, get a projection and then do just a little automatic royalty payment based on the projection. And it doesn't matter how it happened. You don't have to, trace the weights or anything like that. It's just because that's how it works now, right? It's just, is the similarity sufficient? Does My Sweet Lord by George Harrison sound like He's So Fine by whoever that was to the average person? And so let's just do that, right? Use existing law and just implement it and pay everyone, and you can then just concentrate on getting hits. And if your hit sounds like someone, then they get paid, and everyone involved gets paid, and whoever comes up with it first, really gets paid, and all the imitators will basically pay you royalties indirectly. I think, why not do that?
Some artists are doing that, actually. Like Grimes specifically said, yeah, clone my voice completely, just split the profits with me 50-50, you do whatever you want. So there's a bunch of Grimes songs that are not Grimes singing at all, it's just her voice, and she'll signal boost those, which is really cool, because then it's just this whole community that's okay, now instead of just listening to your songs, I can actually go make a Grimes song if I feel like. Which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do authentication, so you don't have to digitally sign your music, right? It'll just naturally get a large projection if it gets played, or any variation of it gets played. No point having watermarks anymore. It's just very free and open.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say on the topic is there are some really cool ways to address the problem. I think Waterlily.ai is something where an artist will provide a data set, and then if you want to train your model on it, then that artist will get micro payments when people generate images off of it. So patterns like that I think are super cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Dave, I think you had your hand up too.
Yeah, recently, just maybe last week, Al Pacino came on BBC or some interview, I don't know where, and he announced that he wants his digital to be part of his estate management going forward by his family, and all the royalties of using his character be paid to that to that entity. So people are opening up to that kind of legacy, if you may.
I think the floodgates. I think the floodgates open, right? And you know, if he gets out there and sets this up, then you know people will. Well, we know we can use Al Pacino in my ad or whatever or something like that. I just got to pay him some money or something like that. You know, when he was doing Scarface and 40 years old instead of I don't know how old he's now, probably 70 or something like that. But you know, that seems smart. That's a smart business move in my humble opinion. So.
So it's open sourcing your voice and face, huh?
Yeah. I mean, how is that any
Well, not
different
quite
than?
open source, I guess, because it's still licensed.
No, it's royalty based.
Yeah, royalty-based.
Usage licensing your face and voice.
Yeah.
So,
Liberal
yeah.
licensing.
Yes,
Totally,
yes,
totally.
And make the terms liberal so they use you a lot and you make a whole ton of cash.
Embrace
More
it.
power to 'em.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get the last one and then we'll move on here. As inference source, a large AI company, example OpenAI, acquires or builds a AI-focused chip company. But since Sam Altman is raising human money to do this, why Google condemned to approve their own AI silicon? So yeah, this is definitely happening. Did you guys hear that, who is it, Google and Microsoft and I think Amazon are now building nuclear power plants for their data centers because their bills they're A, exceeding the capacity of the local provider to provide electricity, and B, the bills will be astronomical, and why should they have to split their revenue to cover that expense if they can just build out and have virtually unlimited power?
Yeah, all
I
of
get-
them. So from Oracle to Microsoft to Google and what they call.
I think Microsoft was going to crank up 3 Mile Island again or something like that, right?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, it's
And investing in acquiring the micro nuclear
reactors,
plant,
yeah.
reactors
Yeah.
or something like that. Not micro, whatever that term they have it, but smaller scale, if you may.
Right. You know, nuclear plants technology has continued to grow and become safer and safer and safer. So they think now that they can build one that's, like the size of your garage or something like that that can power one of these data centers. So
But it's not fully ready, so they expect it to be available and ready in 5-6 years. So it's not that something is ready to go next year.
Right. But essentially, these companies are dumping the money they would dump into building a product or something like that into building this thing because they know everybody's going to want one of these, right? And I assume they will take an equity share or something like that. So.
Yeah. About the fourth point, Jerry, can I make? Sorry, go ahead, Roger, if you have a point.
Oh, I was just going to say on this topic that isn't it kind of eye-opening or something that we're talking about AI having that significant of an energy footprint, right? I mean, these services are kind of free and cool and everything, and we're heading towards AGI, but boy, it's expensive when it comes to power. It's a big impact.
But aren't they also talking
better
about?
use than Bitcoin, mind you, but.
Yeah, but Roger, aren't
Same
they talking
technology.
about trillions of dollars of business opportunities and businesses around it as well, right? I mean, I don't know if it is new opportunities or transition using AI. I mean, that is, I think, still a big question. But if you see the opportunities, and the, more than opportunities, if that's the only way to survive, maybe for these big companies or compete, then they would rather do that. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure they have good financial people. I'm sure they've looked at the numbers, and the numbers must shake out to some degree before you start, throwing money at these nuclear power plant startups and things like that. So.
I just
Jayant had his hand up.
Oh, Janet,
Yeah,
I'm
so-
sorry.
No worries. So I had seen something where they had projected by some year the amount of power used by AI, Gen AI, whatever, was going to exceed that of Japan or something like that. So they had,
Yeah.
so there was a projection. I don't remember the numbers.
Yeah.
But there's
Well-
a lot of research going on in terms of one, how to have low power devices, right? So bring things closer together so that they'll use less power, etc. And then also how to dissipate power efficiently and use whatever gases and liquids and so on and so forth to dissipate that power. So there's a lot of work going on around this, I think. Yeah.
It's a tough engineering problem. Not the engineering we do, but, it's power
The
plant
real-
engineers, whatever you want to, mechanical heat thermal problems and things like that are way beyond anything I know about,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah, but it's interesting. It's the way it goes in tech, right? Everything eventually kind of comes back around to something.
Yeah, I mean, also on the earlier topic of open sourcing your voice, etc. So like, it could get into some weird stuff. What if somebody used your voice for an ad of a product that you don't believe in, or you actually, oppose?
Yeah,
How
I
would you-
think,
How would you deal
yeah.
with that? So
I
So
don't know.
after, yeah, so that was a question asked to Al Pacino in that conversation
Okay.
as well.
okay,
And he said that that's up to the people who are controlling it after he's gone. He cannot control that.
I see.
So
he-
the licensing, whoever's
wash his
licensing
hands
his
off
his whatever, his
Yeah.
likeness or whatever, his voice and everything like that.
Yeah,
It would be up to them.
commercially, right? Commercially, they're already doing it. I don't know if you guys talked about it. I had to drop off, but like Meta AI, in WhatsApp, you can choose some celebrity voices. So they've already cut deals,
might-
I guess, with people.
Yeah, they must have that all licensed, right? Yeah.
Right, definitely, yeah.
Cool.
Can I add,
Sure.
Jerry,
Sure, and then we'll move on here.
yeah, the number 4, the tech IPO. So even though there were not IPOs this year, I think that is a separate problem, especially of the tech industry. But there have been big time acquisitions of AI companies. Character.ai got acquired for $2.5 billion by Google. Suleiman's company, Mustafa Suleiman's company, Pi Inference or whatever it was called, in UK got acquired by Microsoft, and that guy became the head of Microsoft AI. And that was like north of $650-700 million. Even though Microsoft was an investor in that, but nonetheless, that was a big acquisition. GraphCode got acquired by some other company in UK. I forget which company acquired them. It was also $650-700 million, and Stellgrass is going IPO. So I would say that it has been unlocked a little bit, but IPOs is a different thing altogether, especially, with so many companies that went IPO in 22 and 21. You're still recovering from that. What is it called? Not the real public IPO, but some other term for it, I forget.
Oh, yeah. I know it. I don't know the
SPAC?
name.
Yeah.
SPAC, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
a lot of EV companies and other companies that went boom during that time are bust now, big time.
Yeah. Well, you got to figure some of these it's going to happen the same way. But, if you don't, they have the money to play that game and have some percentage of infant mortality or whatever you want to call it, the ones that just don't work out, So, all right. So that was 2023. Now let's move on a little bit here in our remaining time here to what they're saying that for this year and stuff. So let me click here. Oh, section 1. So if you can see on the top here, they have these 5 headings: the introduction, which we kind of went through, the research, industry, politics, safety, and predictions. We're going to touch on all these, but not a lot on the politics and safety. I mean, last time I don't even think we touched on politics, but since we're getting a little more mature, I think it's important we at least spend a little time in there based on the conversation we've had. Okay, let's see here. It says OpenAI's reign of terror came to an end until, and now we have all these things that are coming out to compete with them. They have Claude, Sonnet, Gemini 1.5, and they say these new models have all but eliminated the gap in between GPT variants and things like that. And they give some numbers and things like that here. So, I think we're getting to the point where a lot of the big big models, and by big I mean big money company models, are, you know, if you were to look at the difference between them, they're just not huge here. We're talking, oh, they won at 91.6, but this guy's at 90.7 and this guy's at 90.5, you know? So it's worse than, you know, those academic papers we read, right? Where we always pick the thing that we do the best at and kind of fit to the top. So it is a very tight thing. And I think if you were to go back and look at various versions, I suspect the leader changes probably every month or two or something like that. So we'll see how well OpenAI does and everybody does. Okay, let's see. I don't get the Strawberry Landed double down on scaling inference compute. They said that the OpenAI team, OpenAI 01 appears, you know, weeks from papers and things like that, and it looks great and everything, but they're pointing out, and I highlighted this here, that the cost for you to use this is pricey. I don't know if these numbers are exactly correct, but it's still a lot more than like GPT-4o was and things like that. So OpenAI is out there, but as a cost, and the cost is something we're going to have to bear as developers and what have you not. So depends, do you really, really need to be, you know, 1.3% better on whatever you're doing than, you know, use that model and spend all that money. Okay. And this is an interesting one. OBO01 showcases both incredible strength and persistence weakness, and people started putting it through its paces. And there's this interesting viral video of this PhD student reacted in astonishment to see the thing reproduce all the code he spent the last year putting together in about an hour. And that, to me, as a developer, is kind of frightening. It's amazing and frightening at the same time that models can do that. I mean, this guy, you know, is a PhD candidate. This is probably part of his dissertation. And essentially, it kind of like vapored kind of the heart or the guts of his, you know, part of his dissertation. I mean, maybe Julius, you can answer as a, you know, as somebody who is, you know, mentored these guys and things like that. I mean, what does that do? I mean, you know, how do you treat that as a professor?
Well, the first thing you want to check is that the dissertation is not in the training data. You never know. I mean, you better, you know, check that. See if it'll quote it. See if you can make it regurgitate. But I don't know. I think it's overstated. I mean, there's a lot that goes through a dissertation. You know, you're not going to get all of it, but you might get some results in here and there. You know, I'm in the field of signal processing where all the chatbots are really bad at signal processing. They don't get it. You know, they can't even do. I don't even see how they do well on high school math if they can't do polynomials with complex roots. I mean, I can't get basic polynomial manipulation reliably. And, you know, they're famous for not being able to do just plain arithmetic type stuff. You know, they're not learning the rules. They're not generalizing to the kinds of rules we all learned. So I think we need new polynomial benchmarks and all this. We need a benchmark for all the K-12 subjects, right? You know, they're bad at the stuff I do. And so it may look like a nice dissertation, but, you know, once you really read it slowly and carefully, you know, there's just errors everywhere and just misconceptions and not getting it here or there. It's frustrating because I'm trying to use it, right? And so, you know, I had an experience, and I had a student who wanted the parametric equalizers, you know, low shelf, high shelf, peaking equalizer, and I have those written in Faust, but, you know, of course he wants it in Python. So, oh, you know, I bet my chatbot can do that in a minute, and it could. But it took a wrong turn, and it didn't return the filter, it returned the frequency response to the filter, because it wanted to display it. It was all, you know, all about getting to that, you know, nice pretty plot, which is amazing. And in 1 minute, I had a beautiful plot of all the shelf filters and a lot of different range. It was like picture perfect, and I was so happy. I was going to tell the student, and then I got into it, and but where's the filter? How am I going to implement this? And so I added, so long story short, it couldn't add the polynomial output. It could not give me the polynomial coefficients. It had to, you know, it got the output of, it was smart enough to use low pass from scipy.signal. And all it had to do was add a constant to this low pass, this Butterworth low pass. Couldn't do it. It didn't get it. Didn't know what was going on.
Julius,
Yeah.
so did you use O1 for it or Sonnet 3.5 or any of those?
This was Sonnet 3.5 new, and it was just like
The
2
latest
days ago.
Yeah.
And it's the best thing there is, right? I mean, how can you beat? Well, I mean, I could try a bigger model, but that should have done it, right? And I tried.
So the only, may I interject if that's okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only thing I would add to that is, you know, if, as you said or pointed out earlier, if it is not there in the training data set, there's no way it will be able to take it to the next level. So it really needs the documentation of whatever you're trying to use. Potentially, I don't know if that applies here. There is another thing also when sometimes, and this is, I'll talk about my problem that I just got resolved earlier today, but maybe that is one aspect where you are willing to spend some money and give it all the context and let it fly and look at all the documents and then come back and say, well, okay, this is what it is. I'm not omni whatever, but if you give me enough information, I can read it and then help solve the problem. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah. Well, I've tried O1 preview, I've tried 4.0, and I've tried Quad 3.5, and they're all tripping up. And I'm really puzzled because it's such a simple. They all get the basic idea. I mean, I'm giving them documentation, right? So it's very clearly documented what's going on, and they understand what they want to get, and they can get nice, pretty plots that look right, but they can't do the basic manipulation of the polynomial filter coefficients. That's just beyond them. It's like maybe it's just because it's not documented. That's kind of an under the hood thing, but it's a high school level polynomial under the hood thing. So I don't know. I find it very disappointing that they can't handle that.
Sounds like a good project for a graduate student or something like that. You must know a few, right? To
Yeah.
take a look
So
at
the
that.
problem,
Well, how do I?
go ahead.
What do you say to the graduate student? Give me the prompt.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm saying, ask them why this doesn't work. You know, why is this model so stupid? Or could you design a prompt that would make it smart enough to answer this question?
Well, my intuition is that what I need is a fine tuning on lots and lots of polynomial problems, and it's very easy to generate them, right? So I'm going to generate a zillion polynomial manipulation problems, including complex roots, and just all the corner cases. You know, repeated roots will be overrepresented in the data. All the corner cases and tripping points, and just keep showing lots and lots of examples, and fine tune and hope that it will generalize and get the idea, because it doesn't get it now. And this is based on more than just this experience. I mean, I've had a lot of cases where as soon as complex numbers are involved, look out. I mean, the bottom line is you want to keep it at the API level. You know, the bots know APIs really well. If it's in SciPy, if it's in MATLAB or C++ libraries, really good, because those are well documented, right? And so it understands the documentation and the API. And if you can solve the problem in terms of API at function call levels that are documented, every single one, it's going to do very, very well. But as soon as it's got to get down into a for loop, then it's no better than most of it. So, you know, it's just like, you know, it's got off by one errors, and, you know, lines of code just mysteriously vanish when it's copying. It insists on rewriting the whole thing. It's hard to get it to not do that. And if you ask for diffs, the diffs are also very noisy. You know, lines just come and go, and so it's just not quite solid enough. At least I haven't found it. But you know, when I can get an answer in terms of existing APIs, nice. It's great. It's really a powerful thing. And I can quote like a more than a 10x acceleration factor in my software development. But as soon as it can't find an API, as soon as you're in some corner,
Then you're dead, right?
yeah, it's just, you're going to debug it yourself. You're going to go down in there. And
Now you're debugging somebody else's code, right?
yeah, it's even worse, right? So
Yeah,
and the kinds of errors are like the kinds of errors I make. You know, it's like just off by one here. You know, just you don't want to get down on the for loop sample level.
Yeah.
Once you're on the sample level, it's over.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's move on so we can get a few more of these done here.
Gary,
Thanks
can
for
I ask
opening me
quick
up to a nice vent. I needed that vent.
All right, you feel better?
I do.
I'm glad to help you, Julian.
So one thing that I found is that you can use these tools, and especially if you have the coding tools in this case, or maybe the specialized tools, right? If you're doing coding, then you need a specialized coding AI tool. Those are like GitHub Copilot made some inroads, but then Cursor and others came out and they said, well, you can do much better. You can do inline editing. You can look through the code as if a user looks at it, like following the function trail down the stack, rather than just have everything thrown to it and then figure out how to fix it. So to your point, Julius, I mean, there are two things. One is it gets you started right away. Now, if it is top first 80% done right away, then debugging the last 20% can take 80% of the time. And if it doesn't know how to do it, then it may just go on forever. The second thing that happened, which happened with me recently, was especially with Python and all those things that we try to do, there are packages. They're like a huge stack all the way.
Oh, I think we lost Dave there. Anyway, I'm gonna. You came back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you dropped out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm gonna
Yeah.
move on some of these if we don't mind here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So they say that Llama 3 closes the gap between open and closed, and they drop blah, blah, blah. And the thing I highlighted here is this marks the first time an open model has closed the gap with a proprietary frontier model. That's kind of what is cut off there on the right. So, these open models, they say, are closing in on these proprietary models, which would be good because, we don't have unlimited budgets to pay these companies.
Hey, Jerry?
Yes, sir.
One question, because this is kind of referencing 4.0, GPT 4.0 as the high water mark. Where do we hold the 01? I thought 01 was kind of the next level up.
I don't know the time frame in which these slides were created, Roger.
But didn't the slide before it just use the reference 01?
Did it use 01?
Yeah.
How do I
Roger,
go?
I don't think so. 4.0 is considered a direct successor general purpose model. 01 is not considered a general purpose model. So it's not. You can't really say it's the general purpose benchmark.
So you're not going to compare a 4.0 to an 01, is that what you're saying?
Right. 01's intended only for a narrow set of tasks. So for general purpose,
Oh, really?
still going to use 4.0, and so that's why you're going to compare Llama to 4.0, not to 01.
So are there any open source models that compete with the 01?
Actively no, but I hope that some of the stuff that I was presenting last week should hopefully try to change that. There's been a few attempts in terms of just setting up the architecture, but nothing like is definitively kind of in the same territory yet.
Okay. This is good. You guys keep up with this much more than I do, and I'm sure the others. All right. So we'll move to the next slide. Okay. So what did they miss? I put this in here. One of the things is the questions they asked was how open are open source models, and I had to pull this from another part of their thing and kind of put this in there. And I thought this was an interesting chart. I mean, I don't understand half of these, or I'm not familiar with half of these models and things like that. But it was interesting to see that people are actually caring what is an open source model. And, I'm sure just because of the cost factors and things like that, licensing or what have you not, I don't people cannot afford, in a lot of settings, academic settings and things like that, to spend that sort of money on that. So I thought that was an interesting topic, that is realistic. I mean, if you're a startup, do you want to spend half your cash on just paying for time? Maybe not a good use. Maybe you'd be better off getting people, things like that. All right, sorry to take us down that alley. So the question is, straight out of the gate, they are asking problems like grade school math, GMS, what is it? GMS 1K is the kindergartner type, first grade kindergartner, and then the 8K is the 8th grade, I guess, junior high type thing. But, they're so heavily used that all these new models do very, very well on these, just because it's kind of like what you tune your model on and things like that. And the question is, are they valid even to use anymore then if, everything is tuning on it, right? We're all tuned against that. So I guess it's good that everything's tuned against that, but once again, it's, is it a good benchmark and things like that? Okay. And is it preventing us from doing better on the more generalized type problem because we're so focused on these things?
Hey, if you guys are interested, I may have mentioned this a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
but somewhere I came across a link where somebody did a research paper where they asked LLMs to solve benchmark problems, but they omitted the questions. They just showed the answers, and they demonstrated that, like, let's say it's 4-choice multiple choice, right? If it's like random guessing, you'd think it would get right like 25% of the time or whatever. I don't remember what they were saying, but it was like 60-something% of the time they got the problems right or whatever. So there does seem to be quite a bit of contamination, quite a bit of leakage of the benchmarks into what you're training on.
Yeah, because
is there no randomization in the benchmarks? How they
Not,
use, but how
not
they
the
have
way. Yeah, I don't think the way that these old ones were constructed. You could do new ones, but also like in some of them it was the actual answer, so you could randomize
see.
and it still knows that Paris is the answer or whatever.
I see.
Yeah, they do talk about the data leak quite a bit in that sense, and there's a new paper from Apple that talks more about it in detail, where they add some non-relevant information in your GSM-8. I think we discussed that last week. I don't know where, maybe here or somewhere else, and then your response just goes off. So that's because they have, somehow memorized, to Julius's point earlier, that it knows what it knows. Beyond that, can it generalize? If you throw some non-relevant information, then it starts to fail. Only some of the models, like O1 and Sonnet, they also drop in the performance. And this is like simple grade level problems. You just math problems. You just add one sentence, which is, "Oh, I like blue color." You're trying to solve some blue. How many blue and pink and red balls are there? Let's say, at least add somewhere. I like, in general, blue balls if they're no more than 5 centimeter diameter or whatever, right? Non-relevant, just added it there. And almost all the models drop in the performance significantly, except maybe O1. They also drop O1 and Cloud, but not as much. But, there is some notion about data leakage happening, and that's why the benchmark results seem to be so good. But then as soon as you try to generalize, things start to go off.
good info. Okay, let's see here. We've got a few more minutes. Let's see here. LMS chat board arena lives by the 5, but the models are improving. So what it says here, let me pull this down here. Live by the vibe, die by the vibe, but close your eyes for a year and OpenAI is still number one. So when they look at the models, even a year later, things moved around and everything, but at the end of the year, at the end of the time frame, I shouldn't say the end of the year, at the end of their time frame, OpenAI was still producing the highest performing models. Now, based on our conversation we just had, does that mean that the OpenAI models were just really, really good at memorizing all this benchmark data? Maybe, I don't know. Because, when you're dealing with fractions, oh, I got a, 75.3 and you got a 75.1. Are they really any different? I don't know.
Yeah, so I saw something that said that when people tested, 4.0 dropped more than other models, more than like Claude and more than the previous GPT-4. So they think that when 4.0 was distilled, that the authors were very mindful of the benchmarks, but that maybe that was a little bit of a mirage because of this leakage. But LMSys, just so you know, is like user preferences on the internet. And so you can win without being more factually accurate or knowledgeable just by having a better tone, a better word choice.
Sure.
And so that's some of what this is saying, like, well, are some of these models winning just because they say, yes, you're right, as opposed to you're right, and like that.
So it might be more of kind of a style.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Style over substance metric, if you will.
Yeah. Which could be useful, but as long as you know that's what it is.
Exactly. If you're just saying, well, if I like the style better, then I'll enjoy using it, that's fine if that's what you use. But right now, people are trying to use LMSys as saying which model is more accurate.
So in terms of for a performance benchmark, it's probably not accuracy benchmark, it's probably not the right one to use then.
Yeah.
The two of them are collapsed, and so that's what they're pointing to in this slide.
Okay. Thanks, Ted. I really, in some of these I've kind of, sort of. All right. Let's see, what do we got here? A few more minutes. Okay, let's just see if we can get through this section here. And so the question is, as you guys know, I like to work on little small devices. So I always ask myself this question: can I make my model smaller? So we'll go through this and then we'll wrap it up for tonight. They're saying, yeah, we can do that, but you're going to lose performance. Well, but maybe not, is where they kind of get to on this. They're talking about their techniques where they can achieve they can do considerable shrinkage. If you kind of look at the size of these things, they're looking at the 70B models and other ones, and they're still tracking, pretty darn well once they cut out sections of it with the original ones. So that's not bad. Let's see. MIT look for open weight pre-trained LLMs to conclude what's possible, blah, 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 blah. And then the NVIDIA guys did this more radical thing where they whacked a whole bunch of layers, neurons, and everything, and used knowledge distillation, and they still got good performance on it. So that's kind of interesting too, that you could take some pretty heavy-handed tactics to something and still get good performance.
But that was included retraining then, right? So you whack it out a little and then you correct what's left over.
Right. Some level of retraining on it, but still, there's what does that say? What the stuff you whacked out, what was the value in that?
Right.
I think is the question. Didn't really seem to affect the production or the performance of it.
I can't remember who's here, but somebody made a comment that I thought was really smart, which is as you get better and better at packing information into a smaller model. So you say that like, hey, Llama 80 billion is just as good as, GPT-4, however many times bigger that is. Then you're not able to prune or distill as easily because basically the model's no longer as sparse. It's already much denser. And so it's harder to shrink a Llama 3 than it is to shrink a, whatever. So I thought it was a good point because eventually if you completely optimally train Llama so there's no wasted neurons, then you can't prune anything.
Yeah. But the question, I guess maybe they're showing that there are a lot of wasted. I don't want you to
Yeah, we're not there yet.
non-essential neurons,
But the sparsity level is on a trend downward.
Yes, yes. And this is kind of where I think they were leading to with this slide here, is their distilled models are becoming, much more prevalent, right? They're showing Llama 8B and Llama 4B, and they're saying that, they're, really doing just about as well in most things as they can, because they've distilled down the knowledge from the bigger model to the other one. Google is big in this, I know. And I think Apple is, looking at doing this too, because they've got a problem, because they've got a small memory footprint program, small power consumption, all sorts of issues on their targets. So they're getting pretty good at this also.
Hey,
Yeah,
Jerry.
even Llama. Sorry, go ahead, Project.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that even Llama 3.2, with their release, they came out with the smaller model, the 1B and the 3B or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask a question. I may have asked this before, but have you heard of anything where they've worked with like distilling the model down, but then adding in some sort of RAG component as well, and then compared the results of that? So kind of the results of smaller model, but then access to additional external information.
Yeah, I think they have a slide on something like that.
Oh,
in
do they?
here.
Okay, I'll wait for that
So I'm
one
going to
then.
ask you to hold that.
Yep.
And when I get there, I'll say, is that what you meant? And you say yes or no.
Okay.
How's that?
Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get there tonight, but I think that this was kind of going that direction that I think I was going in, things like that. So they're talking about the Pi 3.8 competing with the larger 7B, 8B Llama models and things like that. And it's being driven by having to focus on smaller platforms. So I think a lot of this will end up moving, we're going to take these models and squish them down. And also, we're using, 4-bit quantization techniques and things like that. So even if we to shrink the model, we're not losing tons and tons of factual information. Perhaps we're just quantizing it so that we can represent that in 4 bits versus 8 bits or something like that, or 16 bits and things like that. So that, there are how many mobile devices out there? Billions. So if you can get, out of one of these stupid little devices, a little performance thing, I mean, the impact to your market share and things like that is pretty darn tremendous. And phone users, let's be real. I mean, when you're using your phone, you're not probably looking for that perfect answer or something like that out of an LLM. It's like a good enough sort of thing or something like that, or more so a good enough thing.
Yeah,
Let me
well,
say.
Apple has put all their bets on AI, right? So
Yeah.
that should tell us something.
Yeah, and Apple is never known, right? I was just writing some stuff on this today for a paper, but Apple is never known for leading, you know what I mean? But their implementations and usability is so damn good. It is just so good and seductive that the general public, we're reaching a point where AI is now coming out of the domain that probably a lot of us are used to working in, where we're talking about this model and techniques and this and that. And it's like, no, it's a consumer product now, And so,
I think I know what you mean. Like, I think even Tim Cook said, we are not interested in being the first or something like that.
Right.
We're interested in, making it easily I don't know what he said about the next part, but something like make it easily usable by everybody. And so, I hear you. If it's in an Apple device, then it's in the consumer's hands.
Right. They're not targeting, those, developers or anything like that. They're targeting, their 20 billion or whatever. I don't know how many billions of users they have. Whatever the billions of users and things for their devices to bring the technology to them. And they have to do that in a way that's maybe not leading edge, but it's good enough. And then they'll carry them on, and they'll continue to make money by upgrading them every 12 months or whatever they do.
Yeah, and the other thing they do is they try to keep all the compute on that edge device.
Yes.
So which is the
Tough problem,
cool,
huh?
cool part of it. Yeah.
It's a cool part, but it's a tough, from an engineering standpoint, it's a
Right.
challenge,
Right,
right? I
right,
mean,
right.
limited power, limited compute cycles,
Right.
limited battery life, all sorts of things.
Right.
It's an
They're
interesting
also
job.
outsourcing. They're also outsourcing to OpenAI, right? So, they're kind of becoming the conduit to whatever service you want. It's all cloud-based from their point of view. But even, there's a lot on their chip, but that only has to do, local interface type stuff. So
Right,
AI
right. But
is in the
the
cloud.
more they can the more they can push to the device, the more better for their consumers, right? So, over time they're going to push more and more in there. They're already talking a whole new suite of processors. Certain iPhones, if you have them today, what is the 15, the latest or whatever? Only certain of those models can run AI, Apple Intelligence. If you have the cheaper ones, you can't. You have to get the new 16 or whatever the latest and greatest thing is. So they are, if you think about it from an engineering standpoint, they're right at that cusp where we got enough horsepower to do some things, but if we put too many things in this, it's going to start falling apart. You can just feel it, We've been playing the game long enough. You can just sort of feel that one.
For many
Anyway.
years, they've been, getting voice up to a higher level token before it goes out over the wire, for talking to Siri or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So,
They take the workload off the Siri by doing it on device, or?
well, they're just minimizing the bandwidth required to communicate with the server. So instead of sending audio, or even compressed audio, it's higher level tokens. You could say. In modern terms, it would just be like layer 3, tokens are going out or something like that.
Gotcha. You're dating yourself that the ISO OSI standards, and can talk to that.
I grew up with all those. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So I'm dating myself too.
Yeah. Okay.
Julius, yeah. Okay.
Make a talk on all that.
No, that's
Maybe
dead.
nobody
Nobody cares. The Ethernet is magic. Ethernet is magic. The internet is magic. The tokens get there.
History is optional.
Okay. I think I'm going to stop here after this one then. And they're really, really getting quantization down because of the scaling. The smaller you can make it, the better off a lot of things happen, right? The LLM can be smaller, what have you not. But I thought this was pretty good. I mean, they took this picture from 64K down to 32 tokens in some sort of whatever a token is in this ByteDance 1D transformer, and they can still regen this image. That is freaking impressive.
That's
I
how
don't
big
know
the tokens are.
Yeah, that's a question. Yeah,
And a
yeah. Well,
token
each
could be a
token,
negative.
token's like 5K, but
Right, or 500K, yeah.
yeah. I don't know how big a token is in that thing, but I'm assuming it must not be that big, or somebody would. And it says this allows images to be represented as few as 32 tokens instead of hundreds or thousands. So I'm assuming this is the thousands they refer to, and this is probably the hundreds. And now they're saying they're doing it in 32 tokens. I don't know exactly what those are. Maybe they have, it's probably proprietary and things like that that they're doing. But well, I don't know. It's ByteNet, so it's anyway. It is something, and we're getting to that, and that just speaks goodness for us as users, in terms of bandwidth. Our phone is sucking up, and what we're paying for on bill. Things like that, smaller cameras, whatever, are taking. My brother happens to be really into cameras. Like, if you ever want to see what Canon's top of the end is, just go visit my brother, because he has it. And Ted, you're smiling because there are Asian guys that do that all the time, and he's one of them. But he's one of those guys. But I mean, imagine getting all those bits and bytes that something like these, 32 megapixel sensors or whatever they're at. I don't even know what they're at. need in just putting it on, something teeny tiny and just, sending it up to the cloud. Maybe we won't have, big memory cards and things like that on our DSLRs in the future. Anyway.
The thing I
go
like
ahead.
about, Jerry, about this kind of extreme quantization is that when you look at either like this 1-bit weights or down to the, what is BitNet 1.58 ternary weights, I assume that means like +1, -1, and 0.
Yeah.
When you talk to those, to me it seems like there's silicon implementations of this that could be really easy to create and very energy efficient.
Well, you remember
so
we
I
did that
definitely trying to-
we did that one paper, right? Where they were talking about
They put
the
down
guys from the,
ASIC, yeah,
the UCSB guys, right?
yeah.
And they were talking about that, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is more than quantization. This is compression. This is, pushing it into a latent space that's got really nice basis functions for images. They're doing this in audio as well. And, when SoundStream came out, it was a massive change for compressing low bit rate speech. It's just a huge, huge improvement over the state of the art. It made MPEG look like it was really wasting a lot of bits. But the quality's not that great, in the case of audio. I don't know how great these images are, but in the case of audio, it's not a high fidelity result.
Yeah. Well, you can see that, it's not lossless at any stretch of the imagination, but it is definitely usable, and depending upon your use case for that image, this is not Nat Geo stuff, but in terms of, for like what Sully does for securities type stuff, maybe good enough, and maybe now they can do this in very low bandwidth. Or
It seems
Ted,
like
maybe you have an answer to that question since Sully's not here.
It seems like it becomes really useful when accuracy is not that important. In other words, that if it's a highly detailed picture of a bear crossing a stream, whether it's the exact representation of what the reality is, what the photograph was, if that's not important, if you get the essence of it, then it seems like that's where this is valuable.
Yeah, so a fidelity question probably as much as anything. Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was interesting and, and pretty impressive work, on their part. So anyway, so we are at time. So I think we'll stop here for today, if that's okay with everybody.
Sounds good. I'm going to stop my recording.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we'll